tackles. Something we didn't predict was the Demons sacking Simon Goodwin. David King, your first crack is to look at the Demons who've had a big 48 hours.
Yeah, they have. They've had a huge 48 hours, and we should all say congratulations to Simon Goodwin on what he's achieved with that football club. Flags are hard to win. You know, we're looking at where our teams have been over the last few years. Geez, you'd love to have been on the ride that they've had.
Absolutely.
But I do think, and I've not heard one person say that it's a shared responsibility. I've heard we need a new voice, we need a new leader. But what about the edges? Who else is putting their hand up for getting things wrong over the last 18 to 24 months? Because I want to strip it back a little bit. And for Melbourne fans, go on a bit of a journey, because I think if they're absolute, the exiting hasn't stopped there, off-field. And there's a lot of blood on a lot of hands, and people are ducking and diving everywhere. I don't necessarily absolve Simon of all issues. He's part of the calamity that's been the last 2 to 3 years. But they've had it all go wrong. And I want to start with recruiting. And I think that when you look at the players that have come in the door in terms of the acquisitions, if you like, there's not a lot there that has enhanced this program. So for me, they won it in 2021. They're still trying to win it with the same guys from 2021 4 years later. Now, that's a tough ask. I don't know of any team in the comp that's trying to do that right now. You've got to evolve, you've got to get better, you've got to have talent that can help you do that. Not many players on that list there, with the exception of the elite picks.
3 or 4 playing.
The rest are so-so. So I say, who else has played a part in this demise? And you've also lost Jackson. You only had 50 games of him, and that was unavoidable. Grundy come and gone, and Alex Neil-Bullen, I think, is a heart and soul guy that's having a big impact on there. So those guys haven't helped the cause either. Now, there's differing reasons, and some you can't avoid. But the off-field's got to help the on. If you haven't got hand in glove with your full footy department, Joey, it's impossible.
Yeah, it is, and that's right. I mean, when you see it like that, their team hasn't really improved like it needs to be, because there were 3 or 4 names on there, some youngsters that are in the team, but otherwise it's basically what they've had.
And you're thinking it's one domino's gone, there's going to be more to follow. And to be fair, King, I was surprised. I mean, it must have been a rolling review for a long time to be able to make a call like that without structuring a review and saying we need to assess this season end. It's like bang.
Yeah, so that's the recruiting side of it. Then there's the coaching. And again, we're not absolving what he's done or where he's been, but it's not just as simple as give him the best talent, you go and win it. Sometimes, just before I leave that, sometimes there's the deals that don't get done that hurt you as well. I mean, Petty for 2 first-rounders, whether it's one or not, Adelaide ended up getting Dan Curtin with that pick.
Yep.
So they traded up, they did a few things, but what you didn't do with Oliver and Petrarca last year, is that now having an impact on this list? So I just think that they've been tardy and they've been errant with their decision-making processes over the last couple of years. Now, all coaches wear the bullet in the end. But, gee, I feel not sorry for him, because he's had a wonderful opportunity. He's been there a long period of time and he's won a premiership. Never feel sorry for a premiership coach. But if you look at the core 4, which is what I love to look at, so that's with the footy, without the footy, in clearance and in contest post-clearance. So basically the game, if you like. So you go to 2020 and they were 8th, 7th, 4th and 8th, becoming a pretty good side. Yep. And we all know they were going to gear towards contest and defence. So the next year, it was no surprise that when it all come together, led by Max Gawn and co, that midfield group, when they got hold of the footy, they were bulletproof in terms of their defensive work, which gave them great looks the other way. Their clearance work was outrageous during that grand final, if just for one game. And their contest work, well, they were just killers. They really were, that midfield. And again, it's the same midfield now. So you go forward 12 months, and this is where it just starts to tip fractionally. And this is where I think the talent hasn't helped correct any of this misfortune. So with the footy, these are the problems starting to come. No connection, no dominant target, no one that really grabbed the game in the forward half, and he couldn't coach his way through this. So 8-2-1-1. So still pretty healthy with the other 3 facets. Go forward another 12 months. Now we're sliding down to 10th. We're almost in free fall so now you become just the 2 components they adore. You know, without the footy defensively, and then in contest, but there's holes starting to appear everywhere else. And then you go to 24 and to 25, and you can just see it's become a bit of a meandering profile. And in the end, this is what gets the coach. But I think there's an allowance, or there's got to be a tolerance that you've got to have when you look at this profile now, that they haven't had the injection of elite talent to come in in real time and help the coach.
Yeah. And Michael, to be fair, I think in 2024, he knew that they needed to address their ball movement, that it was sliding, because they went and got Caleb Windsor. And I remember that pre-season, they started playing the uncontested mark game and they were trying, but then other areas were getting affected. We saw what they've done in the draft period, getting Xavier Lindsay and Langford. So they knew they needed skill and talent.
But they're kids, aren't they?
They are kids, that's right. But he was transitioning, was my point. And I suppose the other point, when I think about Simon Goodwin, that frustrates me is this whole, well, their efficiency going inside 50 or their ball movement was all on Simon Goodwin. When really, when you look at the facts, is that his 4 best players are the 4 worst kicks in the team. In fact, they're 4 of the worst kicks in the competition. When you talk about Gawn, Oliver, Petrarca and Viney, it makes it very hard to connect going inside 50 when these guys are the 4 worst kicks in the team. So he did try, but I think to your point, he just didn't have enough talent to be able to continue to transition his ball movement. We saw that a bit more of responsibility on Jake Bowie, and we spoke about Lindsay and Langford and Windsor playing more of a role. But in the end, he just wasn't able to correct that element of his game because of the personnel that couldn't get the job done with that facet of the offence.
So Kingy, it doesn't buy you much a premiership, does it? No. You win a flag, you're top 4 straight sets, 1 bad year, next one you're out. I mean, it doesn't buy you a lot, but what needs to change, you think, by the end of the year?
Well, and this is the exercise, you know. I'm sort of saying that this last 18 months has been a failure in fan management. Every time Simon's talked, it's been the same message, and it's got tiresome for the Melbourne supporters. Gary Pert came out and made comments that were just almost laughable. Kate Roffey put herself into a flat spin in an interview with Jared Waitley, which ended her tenure. So they haven't handled that side of the Melbourne fans, well enough to cope. I guess we get to the end of the season calls. What are we thinking needs to happen? And if you're going to be brutal. And I think we just got to say what we feel. I think they've got to look at getting something for Christian Petrarca.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's time to turn the page there. I would move on Oliver. I think if he's there, you'll play him, and you're still going to have the same as what you just showed there. You're still going to have that, and I'm not sure he has the status of a leader that he once had, and he's not the player now. I know there's a big contract there.
Yeah, that one's easier said than done, isn't it?
But sometimes you can't sacrifice money for culture for money.
Well, Brodie Grundy's a prime example.
Yeah, you've got to take the hard calls, and I'd look at players who are on the selfish side, and that's Bailey Fritsch for me. I think you've got to look now to get operational, get something in the door, and then reset with a new coach. The new coach is another question that I want to ask you. I mean, we all know the names that have been there before: Simpson, Longmire, Buckley, those guys. I want to throw up 2 or 3 freshies. I reckon Sean Grigg, who's up at the Gold Coast at the moment, has had an outstanding apprenticeship. I've seen what he's done with Rowell. I've seen what he's done with Anderson as a midfield coach. I've seen the form that Witts is in. They've become a different product under the coaching of Hardwick and Grigg. Yep. And I think that he'd be outstanding. Spent time under Chris Scott. Daniel Pratt, we heard Simo mention moments ago, and he knows him better than anyone. He's been the assistant for a long period of time. And Craig Jennings is probably my wild card. Bit different, bit lateral. A student of the game. Invested, just doing everything he can to be an AFL senior coach, and has done, in all fairness, since he was about 18 years of age. So he's the American model, if you like, of the full-time coach.
So does that mean you're in the camp, which I probably am, not going for one of the experienced coaches, but going for a new coach? That's what you would do as well?
One of those 3 for me.
Yeah, OK. I think other than that, Hayden Skipworth's a name that's get bandied around. I think Matthew Boyd's coming onto the scene, even Stephen King. I want to see a younger coach that's got modern thoughts, a bit more progressive, and I'd love to see, if you go down that path, getting a Ken Hinkley or John Longmire to come and maybe run the head of football and run the program and have that experience there, that would be a good combination for me if they could pull it off.
I'm with you. I think the untried. I think to get someone in that's got the credentials. I mean, Cam Bruce is another one you've got to throw in. Been at Hawthorn, successful era, gone to Brisbane. They're winning everything at the moment.
But we know the others can do it. Like, we know John Longmire can do it. And we know Adam Simpson.
No, we know that.
If they choose that way and that's right for them, well, so be it. And you've got to I think you do have to get some grey hair in there around the edges to help those younger coaches, but I like the modern man.
Yeah, and Kingsley, Mitchell, McRae, they're great sort of, what would you say?
New wave
of coach. That's the way it's going.